I am the Programme Director for something called Tell Us Once, and today's my opportunity to give you a bit of an idea of what it is we've been doing for what seems like an interminable amount of time, and also give you a chance to ask some questions, because this is a cross-government programme, and by that we mean cross-government, we mean it's local government, it's central government, and it will expand outward to affect every citizen in the country. So it's a fairly significant programme, and all of you at some point will probably come into contact with it, either as civil servants, as local authority workers, or as customers, unfortunately. So I've got about an hour, and what I'm going to do is just probably talk for about 30 minutes. We'll see how we go, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. This. Hey. So there's quite a few of you will have heard of Tell Us Once, I'm sure, or will know a bit of it, and it's an interesting story. And what I wanted to do in doing today's session was to pick out some of the lessons that we've learned, and to give you some help for yourself if you ever find that you end up doing the same things that we've done, which is years ago. In fact, it came about when Harold Shipman committed all the murders, believe it or not, that the Cabinet Office decided to do a review of the coroner services and what happened, because we were trying to learn how to make sure that we never got ourselves into that situation again. And there was a huge number of us piled up at the Cabinet Office. And in the midst of all that, and the Cabinet Office wanting to write the 400-page report on what to do next, what we found were a few like minds of people who wanted to actually talk to customers about what happens when a death occurs, and who were interested in the service delivery. So a few of us broke ranks and pitched off up to the Solution Centre in Glasgow, which was a DWP's rapid learning session. And we started talking about what we could do, and we produced a DVD called How Many Times Do I Have to Tell You My Father's Died? And it was based actually on one of our pension centre managers. It was a real experience that happened while she was in the middle of helping us do some work around this. And it was one of those truly awful stories that, you know, just make you embarrassed to be a civil servant, where her father had been killed crossing the road on a zebra crossing on his way to pick up his pension from the post office, which unfortunately is not an uncommon story, believe it or not. But what followed was horrendous. We lost papers, we lost accounts, we overpaid, we underpaid. And then eventually, to add insult to injury, the post office refused to close down the account unless the mother went to close it herself in person, which meant she had to walk across the same zebra crossing that her husband had been killed on. And it took 9 months for her to get this sorted. And it just set out for us how awful the service was that we were providing for people at one of the worst times in their life. So we did a report, and like all good civil servants, we all went back into our silos, and we in DWP pursued quite a few of the ideas that had come out, and we put them into practice in DWP. But we were well aware that this wasn't really the answer, that we needed to go wider if we were really going to make a dent in what this awful experience was like. So we always kept this in our back pocket, and I guess that's partly my first lesson learned. If you've got a good idea, keep it, because at some point somebody will listen to you. If you keep plugging it and you believe in it, somebody will start believing in you. And what we did was we found David Varney. And David had just left HMRC's permanent secretary, and the then Chancellor, Gordon Brown, had asked him to do a report on transformation, give him some advice on how service delivery could be done differently. And we spoke to David's officials, and they were completely uninterested in what we were doing. They were looking for much bigger, splashier things than a service to help bereaved people. But we didn't take no for an answer. And Andy Carroll, who's sitting very embarrassed in the second row there, snuck into David Varney's office and put up the customer journey around his office. We had laminated exactly what a customer went through when a bereavement happened. So when David Varney came into his work the next day, he walked into his office, the whole customer journey was papered all the way around his wall. And he was sufficiently offended by what we did to customers to agree to put it in his report. So we worked with him and the report was published. And that was when the concept was born of what we would do. So the report was published, and bereavement, birth and change of address service was one of the recommendations. That was in December 2006. A week later, the then, I forgot what he's called now, Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Stephen Timms, wrote to DWP and sort of said, you know, what are you guys going to do about this? I think he wrote to all the departments who were relatively involved and said, what are you going to do about it? The difference was Andy and I knew this was coming and were waiting in the wings, ready to grab it and run with it. And at that point, there was literally 2 or 3 of us, and we just took it and launched it, managed to blag the minister up to Glasgow to come and launch it for us. So we opened the whole thing in January 2007, and I have to say the speed did surprise a lot of people. So we were only a month and a half in fact less than 2 months in, and we had already launched the programme, got a load of people involved, set up a steering group with a permanent secretary, and produced some cards, and there were still only 3 of us. It's amazing what you can do on Christmas Day when your kid's still trying to work out how to put the Xbox on. The effect of that, of working really fast, what Gus always calls pace, was we got in very quickly with our ask for money. So we were first on the door saying, this is great, but you need to give us some money to support it because there is only 3 of us and we really need a wee bit more. And they then, provided us with a bit of money. And we were then able to go fairly quickly into setting up the strategic outline business case. We worked with customers, we set out what we needed. And we put together a strategic business case, and we then took it. And we had at this point set up a cross-government steering group because the Varney report was new and exciting, and it was in the public domain and everybody was attached to it. We found a lot of willing volunteers to come and help us. It's not always the case. We were very lucky getting our stuff into the Varney report. It gave us a bit of leverage and a bit of influence. So we used that shamelessly. And we managed to get a steering group with some fairly senior people right the way across government. That's not one of them. That's what it feels like, but it's not one of them. And we put the business case through and it was agreed. And that doesn't mean anybody gave us any money. It just means that they agreed that it was a good proposition and we should go and build a business case to see if it could really happen. So again, Andy's responsible for this. He agreed the name, came up with the name of Tell Us Once, which is a fantastic name because it's really easy to remember. And it actually seems to have caught on quite a bit. So if you're walking around, you'll see lots of tell us this, tell us that, and It also very quickly became clear that we were on a hiding to nothing calling ourselves Tell Us Once, because we'd managed to work out there were 44 contacts. So if we got that 44 down to 4, wouldn't that be great? But it wouldn't be Tell Us Once. So, we had to start living by our name and finding a way that we could actually get to a place where the customer was only telling us once. We also decided this wasn't going to be a brand, it was going to be a description of how we do work. So if you're out there and about around the community looking at local authorities, some of them might call it the Tell Us Once service, but you're also just as likely to see Southwark Bereavement Service or Fife's birth service. They will call it what works locally. So Tell Us Once is a description and not a brand. We did a good bit of work. We found some crucial friends, and really importantly, because we wanted this to be cross-government, we went out to local government. We didn't do what we tend to do as central civil servants and get them in a room and tell them what they were going to do, or tell them what we were going to do to them, which is even worse. We worked with them straight away in partnership. Everybody's equal, and what it's turned out, the way it's turned out, we're actually working for them, really. So we got the business case started. So what we learned here, people came on board with us. We learned to value them. We kept them by our sides. We kept them involved. We listened to them. These were sometimes incredibly critical friends. The local authorities gave us a really hard time a lot of times, and that all turned out to be good. We started really living by the mantra, all feedback is good feedback, because we would be idiots if we didn't listen. And anybody who watches The Apprentice knows that from what happened last night. You have to listen to what people are telling you. And also, the big thing for us was asking our customers. And I know there's been quite a few sessions I've been involved in them where people seem to think that asking your customers means that you're going to do what they say. It's not what co-production and co-design is about. You work out what you didn't go out and say, do you want this? We were going to do this service, so we talked to them about how it could be delivered. Now, it was very clear if they'd asked for something that we couldn't reasonably provide as value for money, we weren't going to do it. You have to have a grown-up conversation with the customer because we're in this together and they're paying for it. So the conversation is, ideally, what would you like? What would you get to? And unsurprisingly, we talked to a huge number of people. I think it was over 10,000. And there wasn't a huge consensus about what they wanted to do. But what we did get was some very basic tenets that they said, do this and you won't go wrong. And the first one was, please don't make me go somewhere else. There's hundreds of government departments everywhere. I don't know the difference between them. You guys all seem to know which bit works. We don't, but don't make me go somewhere else. So please go where I'm going, which is how we started with the registrar, because you register a birth and you register a death. So there's your starting point. It's nice and simple. The second thing was, please don't make this an IT project. Fed up hearing about government IT projects that go wrong. So I think it's safe to say we didn't make it an IT project. What we did do was we found a small, because you always need IT to make it work, It has to talk to each other and they talk to each other electronically. We went out and we found a small medium enterprise and who were specialists in this area, and actually they worked with us. So it wasn't a supplier, it was going to come and show us what we can do. We started with something called the BD8. I don't know if anybody knows that. So we already had the only cross-government form, underused, underwhelmed by how good it was. But that was our starting point because we had it. And that had been what the customers had told us. Reuse what's already there. Don't invent anything new. Take what you've got and use that. So we went out and we spoke to our customers. We asked them what they wanted to do, how they wanted it working. We got the BD8 and we started playing with it. We put it into a lab at Kingston University, where there was a professor there of HCI, and he got a load of people in who just sat and played with it and said things like, I have no idea what that means, or how does that button work, or what's a computer. So there was some interesting stuff came out of that, and it won't surprise anybody to know we got some really good insight from the people who used it, and then we had to go and argue with the lawyers about what we put in it, because the lawyers always want, they're risk averse, as they should be, and everything, was a bit of a struggle around plain English and making it clear to the customer what it was we wanted, as opposed to making ourselves feel better about what we were doing. And actually, it wasn't a big risk, because once we started the conversation with the lawyers, it was very clear they wanted to be on the customer side as well. So it's not up there, but I would say another lesson learned is, lawyers are part of the department, technicians are part of the department, accountants are part of the department. All these people are specialists, and we're all here to do the same thing. Again, it's talk to them, consult, bring them in at the beginning, explaining the outcomes. If you explain the outcomes and not the process, they'll get you there. Trust their judgment. They know what they're doing. That's why we pay them so much money. So, we always trusted our experts to get us where we needed to get to, by explaining the outcome we wanted to achieve. So, next one. We tested. Oh, we love testing. So as soon as we had something that worked, we said, let's just get it out there. Great believing, just get it out there. Let's just, see what happens. We were very lucky. We had a couple of local authorities. We had Wolverhampton, who already had a bereavement centre. And then we also had Southwark, who was willing to just help us out. And we said to, Wolverhampton, here's one model the customers have said they would accept, give it a try, it's very close to what you're doing. And with Southwark, we said, just open your doors, and as a customer comes in, deal with them. And when you hit a barrier, our job is to break it down. So we never saw our job as being there to design anything, come up with a model, come up with 10 models. Our job was just to say, what does the customer need to happen? How do we make sure that happens by breaking down whatever barrier it is, whether it's technical, whether it's legal, whether it's process. And that's just how we did it. And the model emerged. And actually, there is no real model, which really drove a lot of people mad, because, a lot of civil servants like to feel in touch and see a model, level 0, level 1. We've never really done that. What we've said is the outcome is that you tell us once, and here are the people you have to make sure you tell. How you do that's kind of up to you. You know, we'll help you in the sense that, you know, we've learned some lessons from doing it, so we'll always happy to, you know, show the local authorities, other local authorities that have been successful and where they've been successful. For example, co-location of the registrar and the Tell Us Once service, you know, making the appointments at the same time. But we've never ever turned around and said it looks like this and this is what you have to do. It's always been, you know, a local service that they get to design themselves. Through the pilots, and once we started getting a clearer idea of where the barriers were and how we could do this, we also started to really test it out. And from that, we built the business case. Now, the business case was torture. The good thing about the business case was we had about 15 pilots going at this point, including, you know, in central government, we had a contact centre and we had local authorities out running it. So we had real people in real time going through the real situation, people who had births or deaths to register and give us their consent, you know, went through it. This is all consent-based, by the way. This is not a mandated service, so it's consent-based. And they went through it, and we used the evidence that they gave us to build the business case. At the same time, in the central bit, we pulled all the central government departments in. We had, I've forgotten the name, engine rooms. We called them engine rooms. So everybody, at least, you know, once or twice a month, we'd get everybody in and say, right, the evidence is coming through and it looks like this. What do you think? And that gave them a chance to test it out and did they like it and how did they think it fitted with their organisation. And we were very pleased with ourselves that we'd got to a point where we were fairly clear that we had the real proper evidence in order to back up the business case. We also, at this point, had decided that the business case would include a case for the customer. So it wouldn't just be about how much money this saved government, although clearly we are government, but it also was about how much a person has to spend when a death occurs. And that's things like having to write letters, how long it takes you to do that, how long you have to take off work to deal with the authorities, and also buying death certificates or, you know, if it's the birth certificate. So we had a real go at that, and one of the things we managed to achieve was we got HMRC and the Treasury to agree for the first time a value for customer time that could be used to build the business case on behalf of the customer. And that was a big breakthrough, and that's still in place, and it's still being used, and it gets upgraded every couple of years to show how much it would be. And I think the time we used it, Diane, what was it? £13.80 an hour was the average cost. So that was, you know, when we looked at how much time we saved. And then, so we published our business case in the full and certain knowledge that this real evidence done at real, you know, in real time with these real people in the engine rooms and everybody being able to kick the tyres would give us a great start. Did it help? That's when governance started. So at this point, we had taken a year and a half to get to a place where we knew what it was we wanted to deliver. Everybody was signed up to do it. The business case showed very clear benefits. So, for example, we knew what the cost to the citizen was £50 million. The cost to government of doing this without changing it was £1.1 billion. I think if I remember rightly, we saved something like £70 per transaction. And we saved the customer £17 per transaction. So these are pretty significant savings for individuals. And the local authorities would tell you, there's quite a few chief executives who think they're saving £500 per transaction because of some of the processes they have in place. So then we went into governance, and what happened in governance? Well, let me see if I've got, is that the next slide? Oh, no. Well, we produced 29 documents. There were 200 pages of comments. It took us 109 days, and if you laid end to end the paper we produced in order to satisfy absolutely everybody about absolutely everything, it could be laid end to end 4 times up and down Whitehall. Remembering these were people who'd already seen the case, day by day, week by week, month by month. It cost, just for that small period of time, £1 million to produce those 29 documents, read those 200 comments, and take that 109 days. In the space of the time we were doing that, 200,000 people died, and not one of them got a Tell Us Once service, because we were all busy doing governance. So, at the end of this long period and this huge scrutiny, the business case was changed not one iota. Not one penny was different from the beginning to the end of it. What we published on day 1 was what we published on day 109 after the scrutiny. So I do think that we have to ask ourselves, any of us who've been involved in governance, any of us who've scrutinised, why are we asking the question? I've had a lot of people who've said to me, I want to know. Well, that's great, but you, what for the taxpayer? What does the taxpayer need to know if this service is worthwhile? It's not a personal thing. It's not your money. Well, it is your money as a taxpayer, but we did come across an awful lot of behaviours that I hope will change over time when it comes to things like this. So we moved on to delivery. No, we didn't. Having got through that form of governance, it was announced in December 2009, it was announced that Tell Us Once would roll out, and quickly followed by a change of address service. So we then started negotiating with the IT, because by this time we knew what the IT was, and then we had to go and get it industrialised and make sure it could go through the government gateway and all the other stuff. That negotiation took 6 months. I had thought the governance was bad. I got into the IT negotiation and realised what torture really was. And just as we got to the point where we got them to agree, what we knew on day 1 we were going to pay for it, what we knew it was worth, they agreed on, month 6. New government came in, ERG hit, back into governance again. We went through the ERG process, which was painful, but I will say, in its defence, as it were, and again, nothing changed through the ERG. The contract that we negotiated came out the other end exactly intact, which was a great experience in the sense that it meant that we knew we'd been on the right tracks and we knew we'd done the right thing. And it did mean that the new government, the coalition government, were bought into what had essentially been a Labour initiative and which had been tagged as a Labour initiative. So that gave us a huge boost within our ministerial team. And our ministers are HMRC ministers, DWP ministers, and DCLG ministers. So it was great to be able to get them bought in. So having then got through that, we started building the IT. And I'm going to leave it there. So where do we go next? We've launched it, we're up and running in 10% of local authorities. We've got over 90% of local authorities signed up to deliver this. We've got HMRC, DWP, Identity and Passport Service and DVLA signed up, actually delivering it as well, but they'll take on the full gamut. We've also recently acquired Overseas Health and the Veterans Agency for Pensions. We have a list of government departments and agencies who want to come on board, who want to be notified when there's a birth and a death, because we're dead simple. We're just there for that person at this time. We don't hold data. We don't deal with, the pensions afterwards. We are there to deal with the situation that's happened, whether it's the birth or whether it's the death, and we deal with the whole person and their whole situation, and then we move on. But we need to expand that, because Tell Us Once has to be what it says on the tin. So what we want to do, and what we're determined to do, is to go much further. So it's things like the Department of Health. And, we're fairly robust in the sense that we know what's out there. So there's loads of missed appointments. There's loads of people getting letters after one of their loved ones has died, sometimes berating them for not turning up at an appointment, even when they've died in the hospital. We are actually live in 3 hospitals at the moment. We're in St Thomas's and Guy's. And we're also in, I've forgotten the name of the hospital, but that lovely big hospital in Devon. And our ambition is to be in every single hospital where deaths and births occur, so that you can register and do Tell Us Once straight away. And the service at St Thomas's and Guy's is phenomenal, really excellent. But we want to spread out so that we're in GP surgeries. We have great plans and an agreement to go into hospices. There's an awful lot of people out there who really want to know before they die what's going to happen, who feel a peace of mind from understanding that we'll be there to help them when it happens, and that their relatives won't be left to try and struggle through this on their own, especially when their relatives are old themselves. We want to move into a lot of other areas, but one of the things our customers keep telling us is they want us to do it in the private sector. They want us to inform the banks, they want us to inform the building societies, insurance companies, utility companies. There's a whole raft of people out there that when they've told government once, they then have to go and tell them 4 or 5 times. And they think that we should be doing that for them. And I have to agree. So we're having a look at how we can do that. And we're setting up what we used to call them pilots, we now call them active learning. So we're working with a number of trade associations and third sector companies to see how we can actually do this. It's not that difficult. I mean, technology-wise, it's actually really quite easy to do it. It's all the legal processy stuff, and not least because the information, your information, is worth a huge amount more than you know it is. Google's a great example. You know, every time you go on Google, they're selling your information on to other people. You know, how many sites you visited, what those sites were, you know, what you were doing on them, which is why sometimes you get spam mail from somebody or they seem to know everything about you, because, you know, that's what's actually valuable to them. And again, I would encourage everybody to have a look at a website called iallow.com, which actually does allow you to own your own data and to determine who you'll give it to and who you won't give it to. But your data, particularly when it's been verified, is extremely valuable. So what we want to do is get some of that value back for the taxpayer. So rather than just give it away, we're looking to see whether we can create an income stream. So with customers' consent, we'll inform banks, utility companies, and we will sell that information onto them, which will hopefully allow us, first of all, to become self-funding so that we're not a drain on the taxpayer, but secondly, we're hoping will allow us to invest and then keep going to look at where Tellers Once can expand so that Tellers Once becomes a tenant for government services everywhere. So thank you very much for listening to me. I'm not sure how long it took, but 5 minutes. I'm more than happy to take questions, and we've got some roving mics, so if anybody wants to just put their hand up. And we've got Karen and Luke up here. So I think there's one here, Karen. It's a bit dark out there, so you might need to waggle a bit if you...
Hi, Lynn. My name is Nahima from Job Centre. In practice, how would this work? So somebody has had a baby, for example.
Yes. So
would the hospital be notifying you, or how will this be verified?
Well, what will happen is, so every birth and death has to be registered at the moment. Unfortunately, we can't do it online. It needs primary legislation, but we're certainly pushing with that. But so you would phone up, say it's a birth. You would phone up your registrar to make the appointment to go down and register your birth. Or if you're in the hospital, the registrar would be on site to do that. When you've registered the child, you'll then be taken through the Tellers Once process, which might be done by the registrar, or it might be done by another specialist customer service operative, either in the local authority or in the hospital. And then there's some simple details are taken about who you are, what it is you want. So for a birth, what we're planning, what we're doing there is ensuring that you get your child allowance, your tax credits, and DWP get informed for certain housing stuff. The information's captured online, and you can do it online yourself, or you'll be able to do it online. You can sit with the customer service who can do it for you, and it then gets verified by the registrar, because we've got a direct link. So within seconds, that's been verified that that person, you know, exists, and you are who you say you are, and it then gets fired into what's called a hub, which is a nice big just thing that doesn't really exist, and it's owned by Secretary of State for DWP, and then we fire it out to whoever needs to know, but we only ever fire it out to who needs to know, and we only ever fire out what they need to know. So for example, if it's a death, we might well tell the library service, because we know we've been told that there are outstanding library books and it needs to be told, but we're not going to tell them what your national insurance number was or what your driver's licence is. But, you know, if you want us to tell DVLA, then we'll tell DVLA what your driver's licence is so that they can cancel it. So we cut the information according to who needs to know and what they need to know, and then it gets passed on. For those who can't do it in person, and there are a few, so for example, we've had people in New York whose parents have died. We have a telephone service, so you can get the death can be registered by anybody as long as you've got the medical certificate, and then you can phone to inform government through the contact centre. We take the details, verify it, and the same process happens. It takes about 7 minutes to do the Tell Us One service. And the great thing about it, particularly if you go through the face-to-face, is the whole person conversation. So we've had customers where we've got one chap whose mother died and then his father died within 6 weeks. When he came in for the conversation, it became fairly obvious fairly quickly that he wasn't able to cope, that he didn't have some fairly basic life skills. He'd relied on his mother and father, even though the chap was in his 60s. So he thought washing his clothes was putting mothballs in the drawer. And what we were then able to do was to put him in touch with a charity who came in and taught him those life skills. So that chap is now, 3 years later, still living in his house, managing to look after himself, cook for himself, wash his clothes, and he's not showing up on social care as a big problem because we dealt with it at the time. And that's one of the beauties of what we're doing, dealing with the people and the whole person. Does that answer your question? Any other? We've got one here.
Yeah, thank you. Lynn, kind of first off, congratulations. That's a really good story to tell.
Oh, thank you.
But looking at the two horror stories, the governance and the IT, I'm interested to hear what actually is going to change as a result of your less than perfect experience of governance. And the other thing about the IT, given that it took 6 months, could anything have been done in retrospect to have started earlier? Because it is a bit of a surprise that it seems in the way you told it that they had to wait until all the governance bits had finished before they could start the IT, whereas surely they were on board all the way through anyway. So why did it take that long? So two bits. First off, the governance, and the IT, why the delay?
Okay.
Thank you.
No, those are really good questions. I failed to say that we had this lovely little SME who'd helped us and developed the thing. When it came to building the industrialised thing, they weren't on the framework that they needed to be on, so we couldn't get them to do, so they couldn't compete for the job. So, we were restricted in who we could ask. And, with that kind of, because these frameworks are great in the sense that, you can get good deals, and I've seen them work well. I've seen how it can be brilliant in the sense that you can pull down somebody fast, but it also gives them to a certain extent a bit of a monopoly, which means that they just spend a long time arguing with you about what it is. And also, my view, personal view, is that most civil servants are really polite and nice and don't want to offend anybody and just want to go on with the business. I think you need a few more bolshy Glaswegians who might give them a bit of a hard time fairly early on. But given they kicked me out on day 2, maybe not. What can we learn? I do think, the great thing about what Frances Maude and the Cabinet Office are doing around SMEs, I think that the more we open up the market, the more we're allowed to bring people in from day one and help us to develop these and bring these ideas in. I think that's got to be the best way. In terms of governance, you need to just decimate it, There needs to be an acceptance that not everybody needs to know everything, and that means changing the culture and being allowed to take risks. If we're going to be entrepreneurial, and if we're going to tell everybody about this, and I've heard it everywhere we go that you have to be risk-taking, but we actually need some clear examples of that. We need some of the ones who have taken risks and have either pulled it off or not pulled it off to be lauded, to be put up, to be held up and said, this is great. My experience, again, has been more that once you've cracked it, they're not interested in you, they're on to the next thing, and they're more worried about that than you, and it is a case of reinventing everything again. So I don't think we're great at learning lessons. I think it's going to come slower than maybe some of the other stuff, but you just hope that it will catch up at some point. But I have no confidence, I'm sorry to say at this point, that we wouldn't experience exactly the same again. We might do it differently because we've been there and learned the lessons, but I'm not sure that what we've experienced wouldn't be the experience for any of you putting through a thing. But we're all here to help, so I'll break it down. We've got one at the back there and one at the front here.
Hi there. Just wanted to know what the timescales are for the next steps for getting it rolled out to all the local authorities and for getting these private sector bodies on board.
Well, we're currently in 44. We're rolling out, so the implementation has started with every local authority, and we will have reached our 90% by next March. So by next March, all the central government departments will be on for birth and bereavement that we've mentioned, and 92% of local authorities, by which time we'll also be online. So we expect some of the local authorities who haven't signed up, quite rightly. So we've got the Scilly Isles, where only something like 4 or 5 people die a year. I'm moving at the Scilly Isles. There's no point in trying to set up a whole service for them. Once we go online, they can use it themselves. So with some of that, we expect to full coverage by then. We're already now doing the active learning, so we expect that by the same time, round about next March or April, we will have a clear view of who we can sell data to, and we've got the legal teams and the commercial teams working about how we do it, because one of the big questions that we look at is, do we want to get into business? And I know there's loads of talk about mutuals and setting up your own business and things, but you know, we're civil servants and we're on a civil service service. So what we're having to ask ourselves is, do we want a sales team that go out there and do this, or do we want to find somebody like an interim or an intermediary who can go out and do that for us? So we contract them to go and get them for us and do it that way. And we're still testing the water with some of these bigger questions and what it means legally, because we want to do what's right for the customer and we want them to get the service, but I'm not sure I want to employ, you know, hundreds of salespeople and, you know, turn into something that's counterintuitive. So if there's another way of doing it and other people who can do it better, our mantra's always been, see if we can find them. I think we had somebody here.
Yeah, I've actually got 2 questions, but I'll ask one first. We seem to tell us once, I think it is now different, but I seem to remember something called One Stop back in the 1990s. Now that may have been just changes of addresses and benefits. Was there anything to learn from earlier attempts at this? Because One Stop seemed to just disappear into nowhere without actually necessarily achieving what it was supposed to achieve.
I wasn't in DWP, I'm an ex-tax inspector. However, I did speak to the person who was in charge of One Stop, and his advice was, don't even attempt this, Lynn. Run a mile, and actually in retrospect he might have been right, but I'm a bit stubborn. But yeah, no, he was the same. It was a clear attempt to do both this and the change of address that hadn't gone very, you know, hadn't managed to break down the barriers. So what that did for me was it made me realise where I was likely to find the barriers, which was one of the reasons we got the local authorities involved straight away. Partnership, show us what you want to do rather than tell them, because that was one of his big lessons learned. Second, you go for it.
Quick one. The only other question, now, and this is difficult, deciding who next of kin or the customer representative is, but do they get any feedback as that we've done what we said that we've said, you know, because you go to the registrar, you tell them this, and then you hope everything's going to happen. Do they get any sort of feedback in any way that they know that things have happened?
Yes, we give them, they get a printout they can take immediately, or we can send them a letter if they've done it over the phone, and we've got a tick box, so we tell them we've informed, who we've informed, and when they were informed, so they have that proof that the information. Now, what we don't own is the customer. So, for example, we will tell them we have told the pension service, but it is up to the pension service to take the information and deal with that customer correctly, which I have to say in our experience, and we've had over, I don't know how many, we're up at 30,000 people use this now. 50,000 people use it. Actually, they're pretty good. We don't have too many. I mean, there's the occasional slip somewhere, but by and large, all of the central government departments who have received the information have dealt with it immediately. Overpayments have been stopped, but also they've been dealing with the customer and making sure they're getting the benefits that they need. So pretty impressive, actually.
Thank you.
Is all the questions really just coming from the front, or am I a bit not seeing anybody? There's one in the middle here. Sorry, hi.
Would you be able to explain a bit more how selling the data is going to work? Because when I first heard that, I thought, ew, I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah, no, everybody. No, I can completely understand that. But what would happen is everything we do is customer consent. That's the first thing. We're not doing anything unless the customer has told us it's okay to do it. Clearly, from a government point of view, the information we're set, actually, there is no data protection for dead people's data in that way. The fact that somebody's dead is public knowledge. It just takes a long time. So all we do is make sure things happen a bit quicker. But still, we believe that the customer should be consenting, and the customer in this case would be the person reporting the death or the next of kin. And we have a great belief in that, so we stick with that. How it would work? Well, there's two ways of doing it. The first way to do it is we do set up a sales team. So the customer consents and says, yes, we'd want to do it. We have a list of companies who are paying for this data. It may be that they pay a license to get the data. It may be that they pay per piece of data. And all that will happen is, as it comes into the hub now and then it fires out to PDCS or HMRC, it will fire out to Barclays Bank or it will fire out to Lloyds in exactly the same way.
And how would what would they want this data for? For example, the co-op funeral companies, is it that kind of thing?
No, we don't want to. We absolutely don't want to go down the marketing route. So it's not a case of people wanting to know somebody's died in order to sell something.
Right.
It's the fact that they have accounts that need closed. So there's things like, for example, there's things you find out when you do projects like this. There's a huge black market for prescription drugs. So if the NHS or somebody isn't told that they're dead, then what you find is people taking repeat prescriptions, making them up and then selling them on eBay. Bizarre. What you have with banks is people trying to access their bank accounts, because lots of people go through, find out who's died. So it's that fact that you can get the bank accounts closed down. They can start going into probate and they can start closing this down. Electricity companies continuing to charge when actually there's nobody in the house. So anybody who's had a parent die when they're the only ones lived in the house will understand that you're still getting bills through, you're still getting letters, and the electricity company want to know that actually that they should cut that electricity off or they shouldn't, because there's nobody there to pay the bill. So if it's still, the outside lights are coming on. Insurance companies, it's for the payout. Who's died, who gets it? A huge number of people forget or don't know they've got insurance policies, so this allows them to get that faster as well. So it's people who need to receive the data to deal with the customer, and the customer who needs to deal with the banks, utility companies. Could be anything. It could be Saga, for example. They've got a subscription to magazines. We've got a lot from that. Can you tell them, or housing associations, could you tell them that, my mother's died and the house can be released? So there's a huge number of things around there, but it is purely based on what the customer would want us to do, not us selling the data in order to market or make money in that way.
That makes more sense.
Oh, they've got somebody in the middle there.
Eileen, it's Stephen from the Pension Service. Is there room for TELUS once to be taking bereavement information and DWP's bereavement service to be taking the same information and offering other services as well?
How it's going to work when it hits fully, because we've got a contact centre, is that what you've got is the BICT and I've forgotten the CAM. You've got the CAM and the BICT, haven't you? So what will happen is our service comes first. So when the bereavement notification is done if it comes straight in, then you will go through the TELUS Once process first and then go on to deal with your customer. So in that initial inquiry, you will be an agent for government taking this information. And then afterwards, if that person who's told you is a customer of the pension service or the disability service, you will then take them through what that means for them as a customer. How it works if you're just receiving the information, so somebody's gone in through a local authority, is the information will be fired straight into SIS and the CAM, so the information will be updated automatically. And then you can do your call out or your work report will come through, and that'll help you to chase up and make sure that the benefits that are stopped, you can then layer on the pension credit or whatever the person left behind needs.
Okay, if someone goes to the registrars to register a death and gives the registrar the information, they would then be advised to then contact the bereavement service as well?
No, we are the bereavement service. So the local authority would be the bereavement service. If you're going in to register the death, you would do TELUS Once there and then.
Okay.
So it will cut down hugely. The work of the bereavement service and DWP will be, cut down hugely, because the vast majority of notifications for death will come through the local authorities, not through DWP. So the first time you find out it'll be instantaneous. I mean, we do it, I think our fastest time was 30 seconds from the death being finalised, registered, to us actually getting a benefit stopped and all the systems uploaded. So that's how you'll find out, and then you will deal with your customer as you need to deal with them in terms of which benefits have been stopped, ergo which benefits now come into play. Oh, you want to? Oh, at my time? Oh. Yes, so yeah, the DWP will be our contact centre for the whole of government for anybody who's calling in to report a death, and there's a huge number, more than you would believe. Any other questions? Hey, there's one at the back.
Thank you. The advantages for the customers seem really clear in doing this service. Seems really brilliant for the customers. And you've mentioned how it would save £70 per contact for the department.
Yeah.
I'm relying a bit on my memory here, so I apologise if I'm wrong, but did I read somewhere you're planning or aiming to make savings of about £200 million?
No, you're going to make me.
I was just going to say, can you expand on what the advantages are for the department?
I think you've got a pretty good memory. The benefits to government are £191 million over 10 years.
Right.
I'll be truthful, the business case we built was what we call conservative. At no point did we ever think that we had to go in and look at everything. So what we did was we decided that what the business case should do was get to a point where it was blindingly obvious that we needed to do this. I mean, it was blindingly obvious from a customer service point of view, but let's make it blindingly obvious in the value for money. So we could only ever quantify at that point. We did 25 or 26 products and services, but we could absolutely measure 23 of them. So we included 23. In fact, when we launch, we'll have about 50. And it will, steady up. And we did things like only 75% of local authorities would sign up, and only 56% of customers would take the service up. And it would take 10 to 12 minutes to do the thing. And what we found now in real life is that actually 92% of local authorities have signed up, and over 90% of customers actually take the service up. And actually it's only taking 7 minutes per transaction. So the business case, it's been incredibly conservative, which has helped us hugely, because when we've been delayed through governance and stuff like that, or found that we've had to pay a bit more for bits and bobs, it means that we've had that reserve within the business case. So the business case could go as high as you wanted to, but we always just thought you build enough that you need to show government. The other thing we do is we let everybody own their own benefits. So, for example, the local authorities get to define their benefits. We don't define them. So they say what's valuable for them. So in London, it's things like blue badges. Being able to cancel a blue badge immediately is worth something like £2,000 per customer. Whereas in other areas, it might be around social services, because there's some horrendous, phenomenal amount of money, which I've got written down somewhere, as to what we spend delivering Meals on Wheels to people who've died. And we do it for weeks. Because, it takes that long for them to find out that somebody has died. So we can get that stopped immediately. Or another one, it might be getting the equipment back. So somebody who's died and had a wheelchair and a ramp and an oxygen, we get that all back within days, instead of it, as everybody knows Terry Moran, who's our SRO, fessed up that he still had his mother's wheelchair in his garage and she died 10 years previously. So, we want to avoid the Terry Morans of this world and get the equipment back. So we never included any of that in the business case, but that's how local authorities will measure their own benefits.
Thank you.
Oh, there's one down here. Oh, you're away.
Hi, I work for the Department of Work and Pensions and the carers allowance, and that's one of the benefits that interacts with customers, unfortunately, when there's a bereavement regarding the disabled person. And from what we're looking at the moment, it's quite effective, because they are contacted, and then that gives information to the carers allowance, and often the customers can be paid in a further 8 weeks following the death of the disabled person, but it's getting that information sometimes. And again, we're getting some feedback. It's quite effective, the bereavement service, feeding the information back to the carers allowance.
Yeah, we're not, we're not the bereavement service. That's a DWP initiative that was started just after we were. And it's specific to DWP. We're just about the event. And you're right in the sense that they are doing, to a certain extent, some of the things that we're now going to do, so we will take over some of that area of work because we'll be the first person you contact. But I can certainly guarantee you there won't be any degradation in service, and that you will be informed just as quickly, and it will allow you. I mean, the carers allowance one is a really hard one, because if somebody has been relying on that money and then the person who's been in receipt of the DLA or the AA dies, and the carers allowance gets cut as well, we have to have a very joined up service within DWP to make sure we get in there to understand the financial implications of them losing that benefit. And that's the trick, because for ages we've just overpaid them and then not been able to get the money back. And actually what we need to do is to get them onto the right levels of benefit. So losing that is obviously going to have an interaction. It might be that the pension credit then comes into play and they can get that instead.
Yes, it's like a multiplicity of benefits affected. You know, the carers allowance, attendance allowance, pension service, pension credit and so forth. And
we don't make things easy for ourselves, do we?
No.
Can you imagine what it's like if you're the customer, you know? I had to drag that from my memory. But yes, it is. Everything interacts, and that's why it's crucial that you still own the customer and you still own what happens to them afterwards. That's why we never tried to make this a service that did fulfilment all the way through. It's purely about cutting down the bureaucracy, getting the information out there faster, and saving some grief for people who don't need it. But you guys still have to do the fantastic job you're doing in getting that money out to the pensioners or the disabled or whoever it is that needs it to keep going. We're not replacing that. That's absolutely still down to you.
We've got one more question here. The lady here. Hi Lynn, Laura Cairns from the Home Office. I'm interested in your personal journey on this. Who gave you this programme to run, or did you just kick in and take it off someone?
No, nobody really gave me the programme to run. We like to think of ourselves pretty entrepreneurial. I know everybody outside thinks the government isn't entrepreneurial. I think that's nonsense. I think government is absolutely full of entrepreneurs. We just tend not to try and make a huge amount of money. So no, I mean, it kicked off, as I said, through the Cabinet Office, and when we got involved in that and started believing in it, we just held on to it for, I'd like to say dear life, but you can't get away from that. When you work in a death industry, you constantly use death images, and we tried very hard culturally to get away from it, and you can't. So no, the personal journey was, this came out of Varney, and when Varney published his report, I just went and sat in the PermSec's office and said, I want to deliver this. I'm the one that's been working on this. I think you should give it to me. And I think he gave it to me to get me out of his office. So again, I always think you should be brave. You know, if you believe in it and it means something to you, you're going to find somebody who believes in you and who will give you the chance to do it. And I definitely got that. That was Lee Lewis, was the Permanent Secretary at DWP at that time, and Gus O'Donnell, who absolutely believed in it. So, you know, I did have a couple of fairly key players who just, you know, allowed me to push and push. Occasionally told me to back off, but allowed me to push more than they told me to back off. So we've got one over here. Where are you going to make them run? Watch my time. I always worry when people leave if I've offended somebody or...
It's Dave Greenwood, HMRC. Whilst we've quite rightly concentrated on bereavement, there's other areas that cause upset, like when somebody wants to act as needs to act as a power of attorney, or the bankrupt. Could this sort of system be extended into those sort of areas? Because I know from working in HMRC that can create problems where powers of attorney do cause upset. And bankruptcy does as well. I just think it could be extended. I just wondered, is there any plans?
Absolutely. We've got one of the senior managers here, Diane, who's gone through the same thing. Power of attorney just got lost recently, didn't it, in the bank for your mother? So we're well aware, you know, through personal journeys of what you're saying, and absolutely is the answer. And HMRC's got some very interesting things in it around this. What's the name of that one? Matt always calls the bread by mistake. Bonavanti. He always calls it ciabatta for something. There's Bonavanti. There's all kinds of smallish things that you wouldn't come across unless you had gone through a bereavement. You would never even know they existed. But the amount of hassle it can cause you at the time is incredible. And almost all of these areas absolutely want to sign up and get this notification and help it. And yes, we can do something with the power of attorney, and I believe it's on our long list. The Office of Public Guardianship, that's right. Who wants to sign up? He's just trying to find the 3 bob it needs to get him on the system. Because that's the other thing. We're happy to sign anybody and take anybody else on, but we don't have a budget. So we're going to be charging anybody who wants to come on will have to pay to come on. But once you're on, you're on. And the payment, we're structuring a payment system. It is just purely based on how much it costs us to put you on the system. So we're just doing that fair charge. And it worked really well with the Overseas Health, was our first new one that came on, and we had to do the pricing for them. And I know, Andy, can you remember what the savings were and how much we charged them, or Diane? 12 million a year benefits. Yeah, it was something like 40 or 50,000 to come on, and a £12 million benefit every year. So that was fairly easy, that one. So there's lots there, and one of the things we want to do is help anybody who needs to build a business case, because we've done this. I mean, that's, we can really help here in terms of marketing, or we will go and talk to anybody you want us to. We've been up and down the country in some amazing places and local authorities talking to elected members and non-elected members. The great thing about our team is we're here to break down the barriers, and whether those barriers are technical or cultural or financial, we're here to help and help you put together your case and help you deliver your case. I feel like a salesman.
Sorry about this, I'm more than my fair share, but I just want to clear up some confusion, because the gentleman from Carers Lounge also didn't grasp it. You were saying, firstly, where do you actually sit? It started with an HMRC report, or somebody, David Valley was seen in HMRC. But you're not exactly DWP either. What exactly part of the organisation do you actually sit in?
Can I ask you a question? Why does that matter?
I don't know. I suppose it doesn't, but I suppose it doesn't matter.
There you go. How liberating is it if you don't care what grade I am?
I don't care what grade you are.
I care what grade I am, but that's for a different reason. But if you don't care what grade I am or what organisation, if I'm just here as government to help the citizen, and that's what my job is, because actually citizens don't, it's meaningless to most people if you talk to them in the street. They understand a local authority in the sense that they come and collect their bins. And, you might get them to understand that pensions are paid, but we've had just as many people who believe local authorities pay their pension as the pension service. It's, so I'm happy to answer your question, which is my pay and rations, as you would call it, come from DWP. And business as usual will sit in DWP. And the reason for that is the Secretary of State for DWP has got the best powers. So we use his powers in order to be able to pass this information on and use it. But to all intents and purposes, and if you come down and have a look at our stand, we only ever badge ourselves as HM government.
Right. Is it just that is it just that you were saying you started about the same, because the bereavement services have also got their new, it's either a contact centre or something like that for notify that. People don't notify the benefits, they notify the bereavement service, and you said that started slightly after you.
Yes.
I presume you liaised closely with them, so you didn't it just because I wasn't sure whether you were a bereavement service when we started.
Lessons learned. We should never have done two things. Lessons learned, there should have been one IT system. We should never have built the BICT and the Tell Us Once. These lessons are easy to learn in retrospect. At the time, we were incredibly risky. There weren't many people who would have put a bet on us happening for all good reasons, and it has been the hardest slog, and we've had to be the most resilient team and just, not take no for an answer. But, the truth is most people wouldn't have thought we would have worked. So DWP hedged their bets and built the bereavement service at the same time.
So are you
Fortunately or unfortunately, we have come to be, so it does mean that we now have to try and form a way of working with the bereavement service, but DWP has to be government, not just DWP, in order to do that.
Yeah, so there's still some duplication at the moment, and then you're going to try and resolve that.
Absolutely.
I mean, let's face it, isn't that civil service all round that we?
Isn't that just?
All I'm saying is, I've just had 2 people on universal benefit. Well, somebody says, well, so and so doing the same thing, and.
Well, I like to think they've learned from us, because the SRO for Universal Credit is our SRO, and Terry's been incredibly involved and incredibly passionate. And I would say, if you want to know what lessons have been learned from Tellers Once, look at what Universal Credit are doing, look at what Terry's brought to them. Usability testing, getting the customer involved immediately, putting your outcomes up first. All the things that we've learned, he's using and the team are using. And we were small, so we could experiment. They're a bit bigger, you know. Just a little bit bigger. So, but that's great. And what we can see, over here, it's only water, I promise. What we've been able to do is to allow that, you know, is to feed into them all the things that they've got. So they're learning from us and building on us and getting better than us.
Right, well, let's just hope confusion's cleared up now.
Oh, I hope so. I bet I wouldn't put any money on it either. It confuses me sometimes. We're drawing to a close now. Is there any burning question? Well, thank you very much, everybody who sat patiently and listened. We have got a stall downstairs. Anybody who's interested in learning a bit more, or anybody who wants to sign up or get involved or do whatever you want to do, please come downstairs and see us. We'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you very much. And I'll even continue the conversation.